You are not ordinary. You are the storm that others never saw coming. The quiet shift that unsettles entire rooms without you speaking a word. Somewhere right now, people are puzzled by the new you. They whisper, they speculate, they try to fit your evolution into their small frameworks. What they don't realize is that they're witnessing the unfolding of someone who has stepped outside the reach of their expectations. It was never about becoming distant or cruel. It was about stepping into a higher state where the noise of petty battles no longer reached you. Where once you poured yourself into everyone's fires, now you walk with a calm that cannot be provoked. What they call cold is simply the armor you earned by surviving the weight of what was meant to break you. Their confusion is loud. They wonder where your warmth went, why you no longer chase approval, why their storms no longer shake you. But your silence is not absence, it's mastery. It's the proof that your energy is too sacred to be wasted on chaos that cannot touch you anymore. Every late night, every tear you swallowed, every betrayal that scorched your trust, it was all fuel for this becoming. Life sculpted you with relentless precision, chiseling away what no longer served you until only the unshakable core remained. They cannot comprehend that your detachment is not emptiness but expansion. Let them talk. Let them dissect your movements like scientists studying a rare phenomenon. Their analysis is only a mirror of their own limits. They cannot grasp that your spirit has been lifted beyond their reach. You are not resisting them. You have simply outgrown the battlefield they still call home. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. And while they circle around their theories, something greater is at play. The universe did not allow you to harden without reason. What they mistake for indifference is actually the sharpening of your purpose. Your quietness is not retreat, but preparation. Preparation for a destiny that demands your full, undiluted strength. So if you hear the echo of your name in rooms you don't enter anymore, know this. They are not really speaking about your distance. They are acknowledging your rise. Every story they tell, every speculation they share, is confirmation that you have become untouchable. Not because you turned away, but because you finally stepped fully into who you were meant to be. You are the kind of soul who begins to notice shifts long before others can name them. The first signal of your rising strength was not dramatic. It was subtle, almost invisible. It appeared in the way you allowed space between yourself and constant demands. A small hesitation, a moment of withholding, a refusal to rush into chaos that once commanded all your attention. That brief distance was not laziness or forgetfulness. It was the seed of discipline being planted in your spirit. What looked like delay was actually the foundation of a shield that would later become unshakable. That quiet shift pulled you into a new season of relentless focus. Without announcing it, you stepped into a rhythm where your energy aligned with purpose, not distractions. Every ounce of your attention became fuel for forward momentum. And in that acceleration, those accustomed to instant access began to feel the absence. While they wrestled with why your patterns changed, you were already moving at a pace their questions could never catch. The next marker came in the form of your availability, or rather, the sudden scarcity of it. The check-ins grew rare. The effortless care you once scattered everywhere became intentional, precise, and rationed. It was not that you stopped loving, it was that you stopped pouring into empty vessels. And the ones who felt it most were never the ones who truly nourished you in return. Those who had built their comfort on your constant attention were left startled. They could no longer sip endlessly from a stream they never contributed to. Their surprise was loud, but their shock was misplaced. What they interpreted as abandonment was actually the dismantling of a cycle where you carried the weight alone. The current had shifted, and their dependence was exposed. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You and sow a gift of $20 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. As their discomfort grew, so did your clarity. Their attempts to draw you back with sweet words or sudden affection fell flat. Their desperate compliments no longer pierced you, because you had learned to hear the difference between genuine recognition and calculated performance. What once seemed flattering now read like empty echoes, and your heart no longer took the bait. When their charm failed, they tried another tactic, provocation. But even sharp words, subtle insults, or passive stings could not touch you. Where you once might have reacted, you now stood steady, unmoved. Their attempts to shake you became like pebbles against a mountain, noticed, but powerless. You didn't grow colder. You grew untouchable. This new state is not about shutting down emotions. It is about mastering them. It is about carrying forward with unbroken stride no matter who cheers or who criticizes. What they cannot see is that this transformation is not rejection of love, but an elevation into strength. You walk now with an inner compass that cannot be manipulated, and that, more than anything, is why you have become the one they cannot define, control, or diminish. You are the type who knows how to turn absence into momentum. What they mistook for detachment was actually the start of a new rhythm in your life, a phase where distractions were stripped away and every ounce of energy was reserved for the work that truly mattered. They assumed your compassion was fading, but the reality is that your kindness was being redirected toward protecting your own flame instead of fueling fires that were never yours to begin with. The shift made you unreadable to those who once thought they could predict your every move. They squint at your choices now, trying to connect dots that don't exist, projecting their own insecurities onto your silence. What they cannot accept is that your story has outgrown their understanding. To them, your calm feels cryptic, but to you, it is simply the natural language of peace. As they spin stories, others are beginning to expose the truth. Some whisper that you've lost yourself, but wiser voices quietly remind them that your life is unfolding just fine without their constant interference. What unsettles them most is that your new glow doesn't trace back to them. It comes from doors they were never meant to open, from opportunities and connections that prove your joy no longer requires their presence to exist. This transformation has carved out room for growth in ways they cannot grasp. You're no longer weighed down by their expectations, and in that freedom, you've begun to expand beyond the limits they once placed on you. What looks like distance is actually spaciousness, room to breathe, create, and thrive without their shadows looming over your light. They call it detachment, but in truth, it is refinement. They see a wall, but what stands there is a sanctuary. This is not a retreat into bitterness. It is an elevation into clarity. Where others bend themselves just to be accepted, you've stepped into the rare courage of choosing self-preservation over the fragile approval of the crowd. And in that bold choice, something magnetic is happening. The ones who crave peace are finding themselves drawn toward you. Those who value strength recognize it in your boundaries. The very traits that send the unworthy scattering are quietly summoning people who have been searching for exactly what you embody. While critics mutter, observers admire, and admiration always outlives noise. Every complaint whispered about you is turning into free advertisement for your resilience. Their attempts to frame your evolution as loss have backfired. Your absence only intensifies curiosity. They wonder what kind of strength provokes such fierce reactions. What kind of growth makes old patterns impossible to access? And as they stay busy trying to decode you, you stay busy building something they will have no choice but to acknowledge. For while they cling to gossip, you are preparing to unveil results so undeniable that their opinions will dissolve into silence. You are the kind of presence whose silence speaks louder than any explanation. The moment you step back, a ripple formed that none of them anticipated. What they used to hand over to you, every tantrum, every emotional burden, every unhealed wound, suddenly landed back in their own laps. They are now forced to carry the very weight they once expected you to manage, and that unexpected responsibility is slowly exposing how dependent they had become on your strength. At the center of this unraveling stands a figure who believed they were pulling the strings. This person relied on control games, thinking their tactics of withholding or dramatizing would keep you chasing. They never foresaw that their methods would collapse into their own undoing. Instead of trapping you, they trained you to breathe freely in the absence they created. What was meant as punishment became a door you walked through, never to return. They expected to see you weakened. What they found instead was someone rising stronger, completely unshaken by the loss of their approval. What makes this shift even more remarkable is the decisiveness you've gained. Choices that others would avoid, you now make with clarity. Whether in personal matters or leadership roles, you've shown the courage to sever ties that eroded stability. It's not cruelty, it's discipline. In a world where people often bend their principles just to keep peace, your firmness has become both feared and respected. When you draw a line, it is understood as permanent. When you take action, no one mistakes it for a bluff. That kind of resolve is rare, and it changes the atmosphere around you. Beyond the individual who pushed you here lies a whole circle of people who once fed off your openness. They had grown accustomed to endless access to your time, your resources, your energy. They thought the flow was permanent. Now, faced with the reality that you are no longer their reservoir, their unease is undeniable. Their access has been revoked, and with that comes a panic they cannot hide. The more distance you created, the clearer the truth became. Some were never truly invested in you. They were invested in what you could provide. Your absence has acted like a spotlight, separating those who genuinely valued you from those who only saw convenience. That revelation has unsettled many, because it forces them to face the truth of their motives. Meanwhile, you have embraced what they tried to weaponize. Their withdrawal became your opening. Their silence became your sanctuary. What they designed as rejection turned into the very condition you needed to discover peace without them. Their failed attempts at control pushed you into independence, so complete that their influence now feels irrelevant. And now, the irony is complete. Those who thought they were punishing you are the ones left scrambling. Their stories about you no longer hold weight, because your evolution outpaces their narrative. They wanted you to beg. Instead, you built. They wanted you to crumble. Instead, you created stability. The more they complain, the clearer it becomes that they are not lamenting your coldness. They are grieving the loss of control they once believed was eternal. You are not being accused of changing because they miss your spirit. You are being accused because they miss the convenience of your effort. Their outrage is not grief for a connection. It is frustration at losing an advantage. What unsettles them is not that you walked away, but that they can no longer lean on what you once gave without hesitation. Their discomfort is not emotional, it is transactional. The story they're now spinning about you is proof of that. One voice in their circle keeps trying to twist your generosity into selfishness, painting you as the one who took too much. Yet, when the truth is laid bare, it becomes obvious that you were the one with vision, the one with ability, the one whose momentum they tried to anchor themselves to. You slowed your stride for their sake, and now that you've resumed your natural pace, they scramble to justify their dependency by rewriting the past. The irony is that their accusations serve as confessions. Every word they hurl toward your character reveals what they actually valued. Not your presence, not your heart, but your output. Their protests are admissions that what they miss is not your laughter, but the way your effort cushioned their lives. And in that exposure lies the gift. You no longer have to guess where you stand with anyone. Patterns are now impossible to ignore. Those who are offended by your boundaries are the ones who benefited from your lack of them. Those who sneer at your selectivity are confessing that they thrived when you were indiscriminate. Those who call you difficult are mourning their lost access to the part of you that allowed their manipulation. They are not hurt that you changed. They are angry that their tactics no longer work. In contrast, others have revealed themselves in a brighter light. The ones who cheer for your growth or quietly respect it without protest are the ones who understood you all along. They know that boundaries are wisdom, that peace is a form of wealth, and that conserving your energy is maturity. They celebrate your strength because their bond with you was never about consumption. It was about mutual respect. But the ones unraveling, the ones desperate to pull you back, the ones constructing elaborate theories about why you've changed, they expose their addiction to your availability. They were never invested in your happiness, only in their access. And now, faced with the mirror of their own intentions, They lash out, hoping to drag you into the narrative they're inventing. Even here, though, truth refuses to be silenced. Among the crowd, there's always one clear voice, a witness who calls out the delusion for what it is. You are not bitter. You are not broken. You are simply living. That simple acknowledgement cuts through the noise, enraging your critics because it dismantles their campaign with a single undeniable fact. To those who can see clearly, your distance is not arrogance, it is dignity. Your boundaries are not cruelty. They are proof that you have finally chosen self-respect over exploitation. And that choice is unshakable. You are the kind of being whose transformation cannot be denied, even by those who try to twist the story. While some cling to bitterness, others have quietly begun to speak of you in a very different light. They notice how centered you've become, how intentional your movements are, how unbothered you appear. Their private reflections reveal what the critics refuse to admit. You are not crumbling. You are thriving. And the difference is undeniable. What is unfolding is a quiet narrative of strength. Observers see how your days are no longer consumed by distractions, but filled with meaningful work, genuine connections, and the kind of peace that comes from choosing yourself. They see your calendar not as chaos, but as purpose in motion. This contrast between your steady growth and their constant complaining is painting the complainers as petty, while you appear more luminous with every step. Meanwhile, some cannot stop obsessing over you. They pore over every update, reading hidden signals into ordinary choices. They treat your life like a puzzle, convinced every detail must somehow be about them. What they fail to grasp is the simplest truth. You are not performing for their attention. You are simply living, and their need to decode your actions only proves how stuck they are in a story you've already left behind. The revelation that shakes them most is that this evolution was never about shutting down. It was about strengthening. What they mislabel as detachment is actually immunity. Each challenge, each manipulator, each draining relationship was training you to recognize your own worth. Where they hoped to weaken you, they unknowingly forged resilience that no longer bends under pressure. Every past encounter became a lesson in disguise. Those who drained you forced you to protect your vitality. Those who lied to you taught you to trust your instincts above their words. Those who twisted your kindness trained you to give wisely instead of endlessly. Each test sharpened your clarity, until you could finally see the games being played without feeling pulled into them. Now you hold a vantage point others cannot comprehend. You can witness attempts at provocation without reaction. You can hear criticism without internalizing it. You can stand still in the middle of storms without rushing to fix them. This level of mastery frightens those still addicted to control, because they cannot manipulate someone who no longer plays by their rules. And while they scramble for one last tactic, preparing some dramatic display to reel you back, they don't see the truth. They are already defeated. Whatever grand performance they attempt will collapse against your indifference. Not a calculated indifference, not one born of anger or spite, but a calm so complete it cannot be shaken. They expected desperation. Instead, they find serenity. They planned a battle. Instead, they face silence. That is the checkmate they never prepared for. You are the kind of force that no longer bends to the weight of someone else's judgment. What unsettles them most is not silence filled with resentment, but silence rooted in complete freedom. Their words, once designed to pierce, now fall harmlessly away. The tools they use to keep you tangled, guilt, pity, shame, have lost all effect. For the first time, they are confronted with a truth that terrifies them. Their influence over your life has ended, and your peace is no longer negotiable. As their attempts grow louder, their desperation becomes undeniable. Every outburst, every exaggerated performance, only reveals where the real problem lies. They are so consumed by the need to prove you wrong that they cannot see how transparent they have become. In trying to paint you as heartless, they've exposed themselves as dependent on the very presence they claim to dismiss. The contrast is striking. While they spiral into obsession, Your world expands in ways they never imagined. Doors open that would have stayed locked had you remained tied to their chaos. New opportunities unfold because you now have the bandwidth to pursue them. Relationships rooted in respect begin to replace ones that drained you. Where their lives stall, yours accelerates because you are finally aligned with your higher path. And as they keep projecting, consequences catch up with them. The energy they poured into slander returns as stagnation in their own progress. The conflict they tried to plant in your space now blooms in their own. Their efforts to drag you back into disorder collapse into a cycle that consumes them from within. What they wanted for you is now mirrored in their reality. This shift has also brought new voices into the conversation. Among the noise, someone stands up with clarity, asking the questions others have avoided. What if the silence is strength? What if the refusal to engage is actually protection? What if what you call arrogance is really wisdom? These questions pierce the illusions, forcing others to reconsider who the real disruptor has always been. Slowly, the narrative they clung to unravels. Those who insisted you were careless must now confront the fact that they only valued you for what you offered them. Those who claimed you abandoned them must admit they were never invested in your happiness. Those who said you had changed must face the truth that what changed was your willingness to tolerate their exploitation. And in the middle of all this, your own revelation rises. What looked like detachment is actually elevation. You didn't lose compassion. You refined it. You didn't lose yourself. You uncovered a deeper version of yourself that no longer needs their approval to breathe. This wasn't a fall into distance. It was a rise into clarity. What they call indifference is actually sovereignty. What they see as rejection is actually the discovery of your divinity. You are the kind of soul who never stopped feeling. You simply learned to channel your care with precision instead of scattering it recklessly. What critics call indifference is, in reality, evidence of wisdom. The very voices accusing you of being detached are also the ones who can't take their eyes off your progress, torn between resentment and admiration as they watch you create a life that reflects balance, purpose, and strength. In quiet moments, even your loudest opposers are being forced to acknowledge the reality they tried to deny. They see the calm you've cultivated, the growth you've nurtured, the relationships built on reciprocity instead of depletion. And in the shadows of their envy, the truth becomes clear. They are witnessing what they once tried to sabotage, and they can't escape the weight of their own regret. There's one figure in particular, the one who believed they could control the story. They pushed, manipulated, and tested you, convinced their tactics would bend you. Instead, those very actions forged your resilience. Their attempts to weaken you turned into lessons that strengthened you beyond their reach. Now they stand at a crossroads, either clinging to delusion or facing a truth too heavy for their pride. They no longer matter to your path. The irony is poetic. The same people who tried to corner you are now the first to see your transformation. They became unintentional witnesses to the evolution they never thought possible. What they hoped would break you turned into the spark that made you unshakable. Their disbelief is not rooted in your supposed coldness, but in the fact that you are still standing, stronger than ever, untouchable in ways they never prepared for. Slowly, even the conversations about your so-called distance are shifting. People are beginning to notice that your boundaries are not barriers, but filters that protect your energy. They are starting to see that your selectivity is not arrogance, but discernment. That what they misinterpreted as cruelty was actually self-care in its most disciplined form. The narrative is bending toward the truth, whether they like it or not. And into these conversations enters a new voice, a perspective grounded in understanding instead of bitterness. This voice points out what others refuse to admit. Perhaps the real issue is not that you stopped caring, but that you finally stopped neglecting yourself. Perhaps what they label as coldness is simply what balance looks like when practiced unapologetically. Perhaps what they see as distance is just the sound of dignity learning to speak. Though many resist this reality, the truth is already seated. Even in hostile ground, truth has a way of sprouting where it cannot be ignored. Their protests grow weaker as the evidence of your growth becomes undeniable. In the end, the ones who once accused you of being unfeeling must confront the uncomfortable revelation. They were never mourning the loss of your love, but the loss of their ability to take advantage of it. And now, that chapter is closed. You are the kind of person who has learned the art of holding love without losing your own center. This is the new reality. You can offer care without drowning in someone else's chaos, extend support without emptying your own reserves, and remain present in relationships without bargaining away your serenity. What once felt like a choice between compassion and exhaustion has now become a balance that protects both your kindness and your spirit. The strength of this evolution is found in equilibrium. What many thought was impossible, you've achieved. You can give without being consumed, and you can stand strong without becoming detached. The ones still circling conversations about how you've changed no longer hold weight in your narrative. They are locked in yesterday, repeating stories of who you once were, while you are fully invested in shaping the tomorrow you were destined for. Those who linger in old narratives forget a crucial truth. Their roles were never central. They were merely passing figures in a much larger journey, a journey designed to bring you face to face with your own potential. Their complaints and judgments were only sparks that ignited your growth, teaching you lessons you could not have learned without being tested by their shadows. Every push, every criticism, every accusation forced you to make a decision: protect false harmony by abandoning yourself, or embrace authentic peace by honoring your boundaries. What they called coldness was actually the mirror reflecting patterns you were meant to outgrow. What they labeled indifference was simply the courage to value your well-being as much as you had once valued theirs. Each test that made you question whether you cared enough was never about your lack of heart. It was about discovering whether you were ready to direct that same compassion inward. Those moments that looked like detachment were really flashes of awareness, glimpses of the truth that your soul had been waiting for you to see. Even as they continue their complaints, their words have lost their bite. Their commentary no longer carries the power it once did, because you've created a life where your peace is not up for negotiation. Approval may come, but it is no longer the foundation of your worth. Understanding from others may be welcome, but it is no longer required for your confidence to stand tall. Their disapproval no longer unsettles you, because you've already chosen yourself. And this is the quiet triumph of the path you've taken. Victory was never about winning arguments or proving them wrong. It was about building a reality where their voices fade into irrelevance. This is what mastery looks like. A life where the noise of critics cannot disturb your harmony, where your choices are validated not by outside applause, but by the peace you feel within. This is not detachment from life. It is alignment with your truest self. You are the kind of warrior who has discovered that true victory is not about defeating others. It is about mastering yourself. It is not about silencing voices that criticize, but about reaching the place where those voices no longer disturb your center. It is not about removing conflict from your path, but about building a peace that remains firm no matter how much turbulence surrounds you. That is the triumph, the ability to stand untouched in the middle of noise. Those who resonate with this story know what it means to love wisely. They have learned that real compassion sometimes requires stepping back instead of leaning in, that the most protective form of care is refusing to keep feeding someone else's dysfunction, that the most honest act of kindness is walking away from those who have already shown they will never honor your presence. What some call coldness is actually refinement. It is the shedding of illusions and the burning away of unhealthy attachments. This season of distance was never about cruelty. It was about purification, stripping you of everything that clouded your vision. Out of that process emerged clarity, strength, and the remarkable ability to remain still when others would collapse. The growth you carry now is defined by discernment. You see the difference between real need and manipulative demand. You recognize when keeping someone close costs more than it gives. The stories being told about your indifference are actually proof of your evolution. They are unwilling testimonials, showing others who are ready for change that it is possible to live free from being controlled by guilt or dependency.